Hi guys, welcome to my channel Coffee with Dasun, and as always today we are going to meet up with a new video, and it's going to be a book review which I read recently. So what I'm going to discuss today is about Midnight Sun by Stephenie Meyer. So Midnight Sun, if you have already know Stephenie, you may have already read most of her books. I mean, predominantly it's Twilight Saga. Some of you may have read the book. Some of you may have watched the movie and a movie series. So I don't need to do an introduction to Stephenie and the Twilight Saga on this. And Midnight Sun, this book is actually an extension of the same saga. So let me come to that. And before that, let's talk about Twilight Saga first. As most of you know, Twilight Saga is a teen movie, teen romance movie. I mean, some of you may like it, some of you may not like it. That's okay. But personally, I like the movie due to two predominant reasons. One is, of course, it's a classic love story, and it has all the new era. I would say recipes such as like vampires, werewolves, and so much of other things in a fantasy story. But ultimately, it's a romantic movie. So at the same time, I love the setting which the book and the movie is talking about. I mean, it's based on a remote area called Forks in US, and it's clouded, misty, and I basically love that environment. So that's one of the reasons that I love Twilight Saga as well. So if you already have not, if you haven't seen the movie or book, just wanted to catch up on that. In this Twilight Saga, there are primarily 4 books. One is Twilight, the next is New Moon, Eclipse, and Breaking Dawn. And when it comes to movies, you have 5 movies, each one for each of the first 3. And Breaking Dawn has 2 parts. Okay. So if you have not already watched or read the movie or TV show, I am pretty much surprised. But if you have already not, go and have a look at that. That's a really good movie to watch. Okay, so let's coming back to this book. I mean, Midnight Sun. So if you have already seen, if you have already gone through the series, you may already know the story ended without any cliffhanger. So you may think, okay, how this new book come into play? So when we say this is a new book, it's actually not a new book. It was published again, as I said, 2020. But again, at the same time, the story is not new either. So this story is same as what you have already seen. Let me clarify. So, up until now, the whole series was read to us or narrated to us by Bella Swan, the primary female character. But this book gets us into the point of view of Edward Cullen, okay, the primary male character. So it's ultimately the same book in a different point of view. So when I purchased this book, I was I didn't have much, I would say, hope, but because I knew at that time it was the same book. But on the other hand, I was a bit of a fan of the Twilight Saga, so I thought, okay, why not read it and see? And I was pleasantly surprised by this. So let me come to that in my review. But onto the story, there's nothing much different. If you have already seen Twilight, it's the same thing. But one thing, when I purchased this book, it's a massive book, closer to 750 pages. I thought actually this book will narrate the point of view of Edward Cullen for the whole saga. But Stephenie is amazing. This book does not contain the whole saga. This book only covers the Twilight, only the first book. Okay, if you remember the Twilight, the first book, I think it was something like 500 pages. This book contains closer to 750 pages. So this version means this point of view of Edward is much more richer than the first version. In this book, Stephenie has tried to capture so much of rich content on the point of view of Edward. initially in the Twilight movie and the book, you find Bella narrating the story, how Bella sees Edward first, and what happened with Bella, and how Edward came to her. But in this book, it talks about how Edward saw Bella first and what happened after that. I mean, what was his thought? I mean, honestly, for the first half of the book is it talks about. I mean, you may already know Edward can read other people's mind, but not Bella. So, for the first half of the book, talks about what Bella likes, okay, or what she's thinking about. I mean, the confusion and things like that. I mean, how what kind of a agony Edward was going through just to be with Bella. I mean, those are the full first half of the book. But you may think that's too much. I mean, too much details and things like that. But let me come to that in the later part. And the rest of the story, I mean, the rest of the books is obviously the Twilight book. I mean, it gives us more information as well. And so altogether, it's a good book. Let me come to my review. So when we think about the review of my comment on this book, I mean, as I said, I did not have much hope in here to get a good story, because I already knew it was the same story. So I didn't have much hope, but believe me, I was pleasantly surprised. Okay, I completed this book within 3 days, and I could not put the book down. It was that much of interest. If you love Twilight Saga, okay, I mean, there's a condition of it. So at the same time, I mean, there's nothing much to say about the book, because if you love Twilight, it's the same thing. I mean, some could argue this is I mean, Stephenie's trying to come up with a cash cow again because she's telling the same story. Yes, of course, I'm not saying no, but after reading this book, I mean, it was something like you watched the extended version of the movie, extended version of the book, which had so much of edited content, previously non-seen content. Okay, I mean, while Bella is talking to Jake, which is ultimately the werewolf part, and what's happening in the Cullen residence. Okay, what happens with Edward? I mean, things like that. So, after going through this book, it's enriching your whole Twilight story. It's not retelling the same story over again. Yes, some part of it is yes, but there are much more to that as well. So I was actually, as I said, surprised to see this book, and I read it, and I really loved the book. So as my rate for this, I would say I'm giving 4 out of 5 stars for this, because it enriched one of my all-time favorite book series, fantasy and romance TV series. So because of that, I'm giving 4 out of 5. The writing is good and all the things are good. I mean, nothing boring. Ultimately, if you love Twilight Saga, you may love this. Okay, so that's about it on Midnight Sun. So I have, as you already know, I'm reading quite a lot of books these days, and I have other set of books with me which I brought very recently in a book haul. And couple of fantasy stories are there, so I'm going to do a couple of reviews on that as well, but it would take time, at least a couple of weeks, just to go through them. And yes, let's meet with another video. Up until then, see you later.